For almost a few years now, end of August 2019 to be exact, I had moved into an apartment in a different city because my mother, who I lived with in my hometown, passed away from cancer. I have moved here with my long-term boyfriend and one other roommate. We all absolutely love it here. The location is great. It's a 15-minute bike ride from my university, and it's located at a square with a grocery store, drugstore, launch rooms, and that kind of thing. So we have pretty much everything we could possibly need to survive within walking distance. However, after just a month or two of living here, someone has started to ring my doorbell at exactly 11:05 p.m. semi-regularly. Sometimes every day, sometimes every other day, sometimes there's a week in between, and sometimes there's a couple of weeks in between. But it is always around 11:05 p.m., and every single time I get no answer each time I ask through the intercom who it is, except for one time, but I will get to that in a bit. At first, I thought it was friends from one of the neighbors who accidentally rang the wrong doorbell. But after around the fourth time, I grew suspicious. And after more than those four times, I started noticing that it always happens at either exactly 11:05 p.m., or a couple minutes earlier, or later. My boyfriend and my roommate both work at bars, so they work until very late, and would usually only get home around 2 a.m., so each time it happened, I was always alone at home. It started to really freak me out after a while. When I first told them about it, they kind of shrugged it off and said it was probably a wrong dial, much like I thought at first. But when I told them that it has happened so many times and sometimes even daily, they didn't really believe me and that I was just being paranoid and spooked. However, one night when the doorbell rang again, I answered the intercom asking who it was. I heard heavy breathing. I was thoroughly spooked at that moment. I was again home alone and kept asking who they were and what they wanted. I couldn't make up from the breathing if it was a man or a woman. But I heard a strange mumbling or whispering, and then it was dead silent. They had appeared to have left. I put my apartment door on a double lock after that. I was so scared and spooked out. Thankfully, my roommate got home a little earlier that night, around 30 minutes after the doorbell rang. He could tell how upset I was. Now with the whole pandemic crisis, my roommate and boyfriend aren't able to work anymore. They now also witness the frequent door ringing at 11:05 p.m. So now they do believe me and agree that it's very odd and creepy. We have a balcony that looks down at where our apartment building's main front door is. But because there's a shop underneath us that always has a yawning out, the view to the door is partially obscured. Every time our doorbell rang, me, my boyfriend, and roommate would go over to the balcony to see if we could see anyone, but we never could. I've also asked my neighbors from my apartment building if their doorbell gets rang so often, but the ones that I asked all said it's never happened to them. So a few weeks ago, my roommate decided to do some investigating. He went outside our apartment building at 11:00 p.m., standing across the street. He pretended to have a smoke while keeping an eye on the door. He said he did see a man who looked kind of suspicious wandering around our apartment building. He slowed his pace down significantly as soon as he approached our door, but when he spotted my roommate looking at him, he quickly walked away. We aren't completely sure if that's the door ringer, but that was very, very suspicious. Our doorbell hasn't gone off at night since that day. I'm hoping that maybe it will stop now, but there is a possibility that it will continue again in a few weeks. My brother is a 16-year-old boy who's thin, weak, and short. On the other hand, I'm an 18-year-old male. I'm athletically built and tall. My parents had recently been hired for new jobs at a local clinic, and they were really struggling with time management. This left me and my brother most of the time home alone, which we understood and we had no problem with it. However, one night in particular, I was obligated by my school to attend a camp that one of my extracurricular clubs was hosting in a different city not too far away. Ultimately, I decided I really wanted to go as most of my friends had already confirmed they would be going as well. I decided not to tell my parents about the club. I mean, I'm already 18 and I believed it was unnecessary to ask for permission. Now that I think about it though, not asking for permission is, yet to this day, my worst decision ever. As night fell and my parents departed to their workplace, I began telling my brother everything he needed to know before I left that afternoon. He seemed hesitant at first, but soon realized I was extremely excited to finally leave our small town and explore something new. He promised everything would be alright and that he wouldn't tell our parents he'd be alone until the next morning. Before leaving, I acknowledged how selfish I was being and the potential harm that my brother could possibly face. I texted one of my friends who had previously told me she was willing to babysit as a side hustle. I explained the situation and immediately she agreed to stay over and watch for my younger sibling. I told my brother about the girl that he let in and the reasoning behind her presence. I felt relieved, but still felt guilty. My ride showed up and I eventually left before the babysitter even arrived. Later that night, I received various text messages from my brother. However, I decided to ignore them as I was busy unpacking most of my stuff, and those messages were probably weird and funny TikToks that he usually sends me. Well, around 12 a.m., I got a phone call from him. I silently picked up the phone, trying to avoid waking up everyone who was already asleep, and instantly felt the world turn upside down when I heard loud crying and breathing. That was all I heard for the first 20 seconds until I finally called out again. Hello? Who is this? Are you okay? Finally, my brother replied, JJ, there's people in the house looking for the girl. She's hiding somewhere and they know I'm here. I'm scared. I initially thought it could be a prank, as it sounded so weird and almost pulled out of a horror movie. Nevertheless, the crying and breathing said otherwise. I told my brother to stay hidden and to call the cops. As I was talking to him, though, I heard a gunshot in the background, followed by a sound of screaming and yelling. At this point, my brother had begged me to return and to call my parents. So I did, and I then explained as fast as I could. They immediately questioned me, but I told them there wasn't much time left and they had to go back home. Meanwhile, I was trying to get one of the teachers to drive me back home. Luckily, he agreed, after hearing my very detailed story amidst my panic attack. Once I arrived home, there were infinite cop cars and many ambulances near the premises of our house. My brother was unharmed, but in a shocked state. I apologized profusely and I tried to comfort him while being scolded by my parents. To this day, I'm unaware of the reasoning behind the events that unfolded on my house that particular day. No casualties were found, only several bullet holes around the house. I learned to not ever trust anyone, or at least have a background check for the people I let in my house, especially when my little brother is alone. I'll be sure to provide an update if something else comes up. I genuinely doubt there will ever be one, as I reside in a small town and the police are sometimes not as helpful as we assume they are. Stay safe, and remember that sometimes not everything goes as planned. The moral of the story is to not be selfish, well, for me anyways. My name is Thomas. One night, my friend for privacy reasons who woke our Aaron was home, alone for the weekend, because his parents had left for a business trip. So he called me over and he asked if I wanted to have a sleepover. I had rode my bike around 7.30, entering from the back gate and from his back door. I had then greeted him, and we ordered a pizza and played quite a few video games. We eventually got bored, so we watched a movie. Halfway throughout the movie, we decided to ding-dong dish a few houses. After many laughs, we head back to Aaron's house. After a few minutes, we had heard a banging coming from the front door. We were shocked, but when we opened the door and there was no one there, we saw a note that then read, I'm coming for you. So we shut the door so fast, locking it from the top lock and the bottom one. Now Aaron lives in a two-story house, so keep that in mind. Neither one of us knew what to do, but we calmed down after we stated it could be a prank on us from the people in our school because there was actually a prank war going on. So, about another half hour into the movie, we both froze due to the sound of the front door then turning. When both of us just started thinking again about the creepy note we had gotten, when we both raced into his room, which is on the second floor. Oh shit, dude, I forgot to lock the door, I said. As I said that, we had heard the back gate begin opening. Aaron was aggressively telling me to go lock it. When I went to the back door, I could then see a silhouette of about a 6-foot tall man looking inside through the door, but I don't think he saw me in return. Aaron had come down and caught up with me, when I then signaled to him to go back to the room. We went into the room and we shut the door, but it had no lock due to his strict parents. I told him to call the cops and his parents, but he said no, that he wasn't allowed to have anyone over for the weekend, and he didn't want to get in trouble, so we had no choice but to hide under his bed. We began to then hear what sounded like the house being completely ransacked, things being thrown around and broken, doors slamming. Then it got worse, even more terrifying than it already was. We began to hear footsteps coming up the stairs. Aaron's door then slowly opened. We had heard the closet open and then clothes being moved around, and then he just seemed to stop. The bed we were hiding under had a huge blanket over it that hung all the way down to the ground level, so unless someone moved the blanket, you couldn't see us. 20 minutes later, I had asked Aaron, dude, do you think we can run yet and get out of here? But then, before I could even react, Aaron was then immediately dragged from underneath the bed, to which I then heard the most disturbing, ear-shattering scream which Aaron let out while being dragged from under the bed. It was right then and there that I knew I had to do something or someone was going to die that night. I got out from under the bed to see Aaron struggling to get loose from his six-foot psycho's death grip. I desperately searched the house to find something to use as a weapon. I found a screwdriver. I ran back upstairs charging towards the man and made absolutely sure I stabbed him and got the screwdriver fully through his back. He then let out a blood-curdling scream, letting go of Aaron. We quickly ran out to Aaron's backyard, which led to the very dark woods. We then hid in some bushes near the entrance of the forest. We saw the man leaving the back gate, not holding a knife, which I guess he took from the kitchen. I felt his eyes pass me when Aaron then whispered, "We gotta run," to which I then replied back, "With why we run now, we came this far, might as well keep going." "But dude, he's coming right at us," Aaron said. And he was right, the man was running straight towards us. I still to this day don't know how he saw us in the pitch black like he did. Aaron had lived in the countryside of town, so the neighbors were about 1 to 2 miles away and the road was a straight path, so he could easily see us. My lungs felt like they were on fire and I ended up falling because of a tree root sticking out. Aaron stayed with me trying to pick me up, but the man was right behind us and he was at least 7 feet away from us. I could clearly see him in a tall black hoodie and white sweatpants. I don't know how, but this time luck was finally on our side. It seemed that this time he didn't see us. He then ran off in the other direction and we sprinted even faster. I was the slower one, but I swear I could hear leaves crunching behind us. We entered the back gate, making sure to lock it. Remember before how Aaron was too scared to call his parents or the cops because of the repercussions of him getting in trouble? Yeah, well I told Aaron to call the damn cops already, that it's gotten too bad. We need the help. And with much hesitation, we finally called them. I stayed on lookout to see if I saw the man coming back. It was so dark out and I couldn't see a thing, but I then did something so regrettably stupid. I shined a flashlight in the woods when I saw it. I saw his dark, tall silhouette. I thought he was going to run directly towards us yet again, but no. He just turned around and ran back into the dark woods. The cops arrived and they searched the property, but they didn't find him. Then we found the missing kitchen knife he took. The cops claimed there was going to be an investigation, but with not much to go off besides. The knife, I really doubt much was ever done. And if there was, we never got an update on it. My guess is the guy's still out there somewhere wreaking havoc. But yeah, that's the story of how me and my best friend Aaron almost died while home alone together. Stay safe, everyone, and make sure to lock the doors and windows at all times. It just may end up saving your life someday.